Hi, everybody. I'm Jay Lassiter, a columnist and presenter at InsiderNJ, and I'm excited to spend 20 minutes or so with one of my favorite people in New Jersey politics, Assemblywoman, Bergen County Assemblywoman Valerie Huttle. I see you there in the green room, Valerie. I'm on her side, and she's running for the New Jersey Senate to replace Loretta Weinberg, an icon, and I'm going to actually bring her in and
Hey Jay,
hey Valerie, how you doing?
so nice to see you. You're looking
It's
great.
it's always nice to see you too. Can you hear me okay? I hope these headphones don't look too dorky.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. So welcome, Valerie. You are in a very exciting race for the New Jersey Senate, and it's getting a lot of attention from the media, and I'm really excited to talk to you about that. But first, there's still stuff going on in Trenton, and I guess I wanted to spend a few minutes talking to you about what's cooking in Trenton and why that might be relevant to our viewers.
Well, we're trying to get a couple pieces of legislation that I feel is very important that we need to get signed. Um, Certainly, COVID-19 has shown us the importance of healthcare access
Yes.
and healthy communities start with equitable healthcare. And that's why I introduced the Reproductive Freedom Act probably about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And it was back then that we had tremendous support. As a matter of fact, we had a Zoom press conference with Governor Murphy, First Lady Tammy Murphy, Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, of course, Senator Weinberg, and other sponsors. And it's has yet to get a hearing in the Senate or the Assembly. And people say, well, President Biden, he's elected now. There's no threat. But despite the election of President Biden, the fate of reproductive rights still lies in the Supreme Court. And unfortunately, our Supreme Court was molded by the Trump administration. And I don't have to explain to you what that means. But certainly, New Jersey has to act to ensure that all New Jerseyans, right, regardless of income, immigration status, or zip code, have access to the care they need. And that's what we're fighting for right now, to make sure that we get this on the governor's desk and we protect the health, the reproductive health care of all New Jerseyans today.
Well, the fact that they're first of all, a woman's right to choose is something that I happen to feel very strongly about, and this is actually a central tenet of the Democratic Party. So the fact that Trump has so heavily influenced the fact that this is actually under threat because of the composition of the Supreme Court is really evidence of why we need somebody like a fierce, urgent leader about this. This is stalled in the Democratic-led legislature in Trenton. A bill that would guarantee a woman's right to control the outcome of her own pregnancy, and we can't even get a hearing for it in Trenton. So this is to me why.
Jay, I can't believe we're talking about this in 2021. Certainly, it's unfortunate because we do see states around the nation that are going backwards and really making it very difficult to, have reproductive freedom and healthcare. And this is expanding it again, as I said, to everyone. And I don't understand the difficulty in that at all, especially in a state that is so progressive. And so we are so thankful to be in this state to make sure that our freedom is protected. Even the LGBTQ community, we talked a little bit, we're talking about legislation, but even if you take marriage equality into that, and you know what we've been through during the Christie era and the Christie years. So, we can talk about that if you'd like.
It's actually a surprise, I think, to a lot of left-leaning people that something like a woman's right to choose or a gay person's right to marry who they want is still in this progressive state heavily influenced by the composition of the Supreme Court, because our right to marriage equality here is predicated on a Supreme Court ruling. It's nothing that we did in the legislature. We tried.
Yeah.
It didn't pass.
I know we tried. You remember this, obviously. We stood together in Trenton, in the chambers and on the floor. And we did pass marriage equality legislation in the Christie administration, right? but only for it to be vetoed, imagine, and then decided by the courts. And so whether we like it or not, many of our rights, unfortunately, are in the hands of a conservative majority Supreme Court. And that is why I'm proud to be leading the way to ensure not only the rights of women, but the LGBTQ community are safeguarded in our state. And so, again, we just introduced, or I should say I introduced with many sponsors, because, I think that speaks volumes to the topic and the support that you do have in the majority of the legislature, to codify marriage equality into law in New Jersey, because we need to do that immediately.
I agree. And I was actually, when I got the press release that you had introduced that bill to protect my right to marry who I want, I was actually surprised that
Me too. I was surprised that I needed to do that. But
in 2021.
that there are, members like myself, and that I can count on, other sponsors to understand that we do need to codify this. Otherwise, it could just unfortunately be, tampered with, and we don't want that to happen.
It's imperiled. Our most cherished rights, hard-earned rights, are imperiled by the composition of the Supreme Court, and that is why I think we need somebody like you to replace someone like Loretta Weinberg. But that's just me. We can switch gears to your campaign now, and I wanted to say you're running against your fellow Assemblyman Gordon Johnson, who I've actually had a good relationship with this whole time. I do admire his team play, because I think team play is important, especially when you're building coalitions and stuff. I sent him a note when this all started, telling him so, and we exchanged pleasantries. And listen, I've gone into primaries where it's been acrimonious and it's hard to be friends later. And sometimes that's my fault. And so I was just trying to learn from my mistakes. So I expect that we'll still be friends afterwards. That said, despite your similar voting records, to imply that you guys are, indistinguishable in the legislature, to me, belies the fact that, listen, it's one thing to go along with the team. It's another thing to spend 10 years working on the legislation in the trenches to get it so that the team has a chance to vote for it, which is what you did, at least when it comes to gay rights. And I know this because I was there and he wasn't.
Well, look, first of all, the difference between me and my opponent is clear. Leadership is much more than just pressing that green button, right? That yes button or that no button. It's about being in the trenches with the advocates, right? And it's taking the time to draft the landmark bills that, other legislators, such as my opponent, will simply sign on to. But, it's funny because I've received the endorsements of many progressive groups, such as Garden State Equality, right? It wasn't just today that I am sponsoring legislation. I have been in the trenches with you for the last 15 years. And that is why I am so proud that the groups that did endorse me, they know not just my record, but that I have fought for them, stood on the picket lines with them for the last 15 years. And so, again, earning those endorsements from CWA, from HPAE, Working Families, Garden State Equality, as I said, and Blue Wave, because that shows me, or it shows the people, that I have been with them and I have been an effective leader and I have been a voice for them for my entire tenure in the Assembly. And that's quite frankly, Jay, I want to get to the process, because that's what was difficult and disappointing to me. There was no process. I was told by everyone, even across the state outside the district, how shocked they were that I wasn't going to really get that Senate seat, that I would have to fight for it. I don't mind fighting for it if it's a transparent and open and fair process. But when I went to start making my phone calls, friends of mine and supporters would say, Valerie, this is a really bad deal. Valerie, the deal's been done. You can't do anything about it. Valerie, the deck is stacked against you. That was very unfortunate and disappointing for me, since I have been a proud Democrat and a loyal Democrat more than 15 years, 6 years as freeholder. And I will tell you, for the people that say, oh, well, gee, you know, you're not getting the support, so, you're running off the line. No, you were there with me, Jay, in 2005 when I decided to run for the assembly. And at that time, the chairman of the party told me, no, stay as a freeholder.
Right.
It's not your turn and it's not your time. And that was 15 years ago. And if I walked away, right, every time a man in power told me to stay back, I would have never become that proven progressive leader in the assembly that I am today. So what I want is a fair process, and I will take my message directly to the voters of District 37, and I will debate my opponent. I will put my resume, I will compare it with my opponents, and I would like the voters to decide, because I am the voice for the voters, and I work for the voters and the people of the district and no one else. So I am beholden to the voters of the district and the people that support me. Again, I'm their voice.
Your opponent, Gordon Johnson, actually seemed rankled when you scored those endorsements from organizations like Garden State Equality, and he complained about the process. And he felt like he had been somehow left out, and actually that's really not the case. And that's where like the proven leadership bit comes in. The endorsement process didn't begin a week ago when he finally got his team together, his running mates. This endorsement process began like a dozen years ago in the trenches, when this was not cool, when this was not popular, when we barely had the support of the Democratic Party, and you were there and I was there and Stephen Goldstein was there, and we didn't have many friends. We didn't have many friends in the media, and Gordon Johnson was not there.
Yep.
And yes, he was there when we needed him, a half a dozen years later when it finally came up for a vote. But the endorsement process began before that. It began before he finally assembled, his running mates this time. And
you're right, Jay. And I'm just proud of the endorsements that I've received because of my record. And, he's, as you said, he's called foul on the process. But, he's racked up a few endorsements of the trade unions that are politically connected himself. And I reach out to the unions. I fill out the questionnaires. No one does that on my behalf.
Yeah.
But what I was told is that, the chairman of the party is reaching out. And again, putting his thumb down on the process for Gordon. That is what I am fighting against. I am fighting to break up that process or open up that process and fight against that status quo.
To basically level the playing field. And
yes.
So when Gordon racked up those endorsements from, for example, the Bergen Trades Council president himself, who said, I'm going to actually read the quote here. He said, this is Rick Sabato that I'm quoting.
And a friend of mine, by the way.
He said that his organization's endorsement came after discussions with the Bergen chairman. And his quote was, I'm a team player, Sabato said. The chairman is supporting Gordon Johnson, and we don't break the rules. And so that sounds like somebody who is going along with what he is told to do by the chairman. And any suggestion that, that it's somehow, I don't know, gauche or racist or impolite to, say that the thumb is on the scale is, I don't buy it.
Well, Jay, and that does speak volumes, because I have always gotten the support of the unions before on my own record. And, I've earned my endorsements because my record as a proven progressive leader. It's as clear as day, not because the bosses told them to endorse me. So, again, that speaks volumes to the process. And unfortunately, how unfair this is unfolding. And that's what I want to, break that, that game, so to speak, or those transactional deals, so to speak. And I want to open up the process to give others opportunity to follow, in a true democratic way.
So changing gears to not a nice topic at all, because listen, there are some allegations of harassment allegations that have been, and these are allegations that have been leveled against your opponent and reported on by multiple of my colleagues in the State House Press Corps. And it's like with a heavy heart that I even bring this up, because it just stinks to have to even contemplate such a thing. But when your opponent was asked about these sexual harassment allegations from the past, he said that he didn't actually remember the conversation that his alleger said took place. And to say that you don't remember something like that just makes me feel, it just left me feeling a little cold, to be honest. I was not satisfied with the "I don't remember this conversation" reply from him when he was asked about allegations of sexual harassment.
You know, Jay, it is difficult because I don't want to get down, in the mudslinging or have a negative campaign. I want to stay, on the issues and on obviously what the people are interested in. But the allegations are quite disturbing, and I've refrained from making comments on the topic for several days after the article came out. But I do think that someone who cares, as myself, deeply about protecting and supporting survivors, it's hard to stay silent. And Gordon's silence speaks volumes, and his half-hearted, "I don't remember," I don't think is good enough. And again, it's clear that after those articles were reported, the victim certainly remembers it clearly. And, I think that we have these, working groups. Senator Weinberg has a sexual assault, victims protection working group. And we have worked on so many pieces of legislation to support the victims. And it's funny because there was an article recently, just the other day, and Nancy Erica Smith said, it's always the initial MO to say, that the sluts and nuts defense. But with that being said, right, we need to support the victim, hear the victims, and give them the resources. So to me, this should be addressed. And I think that, even if he doesn't remember, he should have some sort of response with this, for this, or of this.
The reason that it bothered me so much is because it seemed so typical of how powerful men used to talk in a climate where they didn't think it was something that they would have to remember, because that's how everybody was. And so that was why, it's a he said, she said thing. And, listen, her accuser didn't have nice things to say about you or really anybody else of the Bergen County Democrats. And so we may never know, but it was his reaction which made me like, what? And so that was when I wish I didn't even have to bring it up. I feel so uncomfortable talking about this, but I would like to hear a better explanation from him as well, actually. I don't even know where to go from here, because that's really heavy. But do you have anything that you wanted to add, Valerie?
Yeah, I do. I'd like to talk about my team and my running mates for a quick second, if we have time.
We could talk. We've got about 7 minutes left.
Okay,
and
because, this is very interesting, Jay. We all share the same stories. And when I heard Javon Romney Rice and Lauren Cohn Dayton tell me their stories, because they wanted to run for assembly, and they were told, it's not their turn, wait, it's not your time, and we already have candidates for the assembly. So to me, that was the story and the message that I am fighting against. And so when I picked Javon, or I shouldn't say picked, but when we got together and we decided to run as a team, they happen to be two effective candidates that have a proven record in all of the same policies and values that I have been fighting for. But I want to tell you about their toughness, because it's not easy to run against the so-called party organization. Once they joined me, they started getting phone calls to leave me and run with my opponent. That speaks volumes that they stayed with me, their integrity, their loyalty, not just to me, but for the values and the process that we are fighting for. Now, when you look at my opponent's first team of the two assembly candidates who were anointed by the party, they dropped out due to, I guess, scandals, perception. And so that just shows that the Bergen Democratic Organization had not run a fair and transparent process. Because if they have vetted the candidates, maybe they would have had the right candidates in the beginning. I've asked, when I decided to go for the Senate seat, I've asked the municipal chairs for support, and they all told me the same thing. Many of them said, look, Valerie, we know you're the most effective leader, but we're going with Gordon. They never really gave me an answer. But again, as I said to you, they told me the deal's been made. So I'm there with my running mates, a great, effective team who happen to be all women. And so again, people say I'm with her and her and her.
Amen.
And we're ready to break some glass.
So Gordon's running mates, his first selection of running mates, basically flamed out spectacularly. It was amateur hour, really, and his current running mates weren't actually his second choice. This is what. I
don't think they're his choice,
right,
Jay. I think it's the choice of the chairman.
But before they courted the current running mates, they actually tried to break up your ensemble.
Yes.
And your running mates refused to go along after having joined you. This is what I learned on a Zoom call last week.
That is correct. And that is why I think they are superb to be able to, say no. It would have been very easy for them to leave me and go on the party line. And again, I want to talk about that party line, because even though they tried to steal them from me, right? I am a Democrat. I am a loyal Democrat. I have fought alongside the Democrats, right, to elect other Democrats. But for them to say now, I'm going against the party. No, I'm not going against the party. I am putting up a tremendous ticket for the people of our district to compare and allow us to be able to go out there with our message and allow the people of our district to vote and select the right candidate. I still think that primaries are healthy for democracy, right? And I could not have sat in the assembly, which is what they wanted me to do, and just have a Senate candidate anointed. This district and democracy and the legislature is too important for those games. It's too important. It's 2021. We should have a fair and open process, and we should be able to bring in new energy, new candidates that want to do real public service. And I will say this, Jay, and you've known me for a long time. I fight for the people of my district and the state. I have always been a voice for the voiceless. And ever since I entered public service, I always remember, and it's instilled in my mind, that quote from Hubert Humphrey of how, the government, how they treat, or one treats, it's the moral test of government, how one treats those, right, in the dawn of their life, the children, in the twilight of their life, our seniors, and in the shadows of our life, our most vulnerable. And that has been my mantra and my complete passion throughout my entire career in the legislature, and I will not stop fighting for the voiceless, and I will not stop being a voice for the people that I can make a difference in their lives. When you look at all of the pieces of legislation that have been signed into law, by the way, under 3 different governors, Corzine, right? Christie, Murphy, Democrat and Republican. It's because my pieces of legislation touch people regardless whether they're Democrats or Republicans. And so I, again, want to go to the Senate. I want to be that progressive, proven leader. And I never want to give up my independence and my voice for the people that matter to the district, not to the party line and the bosses.
Assemblywoman Valerie Huttle, candidate for the New Jersey Senate and champion of a lot of issues that I really care about. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us today. I look forward to seeing you out on the campaign trail.
Thank you, Jay.
You're welcome,
I can't
Valerie.
wait to give you a real hug.
Yeah, me too.
Have a great
Bye.
weekend. Thank you.